Hi, this is Abul Hussain coming to you direct from London, the United Kingdom, and welcome to another episode of the SMMA Mastermind podcast, where we talk about how you can start or scale your digital marketing agency. And we also bring on subject matter experts to help upskill us in how we can grow our own business and also deliver better results for our clients. Now, if you are watching this episode outside of our Facebook group, make sure to find the link above or below this video, or go to smmamastermind.com, especially if you want to join a community of like-minded entrepreneurs. Now, with that out of the way, I have a very special guest, this time someone in Europe, which is always awesome. He is the owner of Virtual Summit Mastery. And what we are going to talk about is how you can use virtual summits to grow your business. Jan Koch, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Abul.
Thank you so much for joining me. Now, for the people who might not know who you are, how about a little bit of an introduction?
Of course. So I started in 2012, 2013. That's when I founded my own business. Back then, I was studying in business informatics on the side. So it wasn't a full-time gig back then. Eventually made the leap from earning a side income to replacing my income, becoming self-employed as a WordPress developer. That has been my profession for the vast majority of the past 7 to 8 years. And now recently I've started focusing on virtual events. I hosted my first one in 2015, way before COVID. And with all the craze and everybody and their dog hosting virtual summits these days, I negotiated a deal with Virtual Summit Mastery founder Naveed Moazzez, who's been a close friend of mine, to take over his business because he wanted to shift perspective. And now I am the owner of Virtual Summit Mastery, and I'm focusing on teaching everybody who wants to learn how to run a virtual summit.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And as you mentioned that, virtual summits seem to be the zeitgeist right now. Everyone is doing it. Now, obviously, we know because of COVID, a lot of people have had to come online. There's more businesses online. E-commerce sales are going through the roof and all of that. Do you feel that virtual summits will still have some space once we return to normality, I suppose?
Yeah, 100%. The biggest benefit I see from virtual events is that you can bring people together without forcing them to travel, without forcing them spending time away from their family or taking a vacation, maybe if they are employed in a job. And that flexibility that you have with virtual events, you cannot replicate that with physical conferences. So just for that reason alone, I think virtual summits will be there to stay. But also when you think about, especially our industries, we are catering to global audiences most in the case. So it's super easy to bring people together globally on a virtual event. I've seen events being hosted in a 24-hour real-time format. So every continent of the globe had their own section on this event so that every time zone was catered for. And it's formats like these that we will see more and more of in the future. And so summits will evolve, but they won't go away, I don't think.
Right. Okay. And obviously, when you think about conferences and in-person events, you've got large global players that are in the conference production space, like Informa and whatnot, and Reed and all of that. For a small business owner who might be a team of 1 or to a team of 5, how do they benefit from virtual summits when they've got zero experience?
That is actually one of the points I'm most excited about. We have many students in Virtual Summit Mastery who are a one-man or one-woman show. And by letting that shine through and by taking your attendees on a journey with you as you are creating that conference, you can establish a lot of trust and build a lot of authority in your space. So even if you are starting from scratch with a virtual summit, if you have no idea what you're doing whatsoever, as long as you are transparent about that, and as long as you know exactly who the event is for, what problems you are solving, and you communicate that and say like, hey, I'm working on this conference. I have speakers A, B, C, and D who will talk about blah, 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 blah. And this is why you should attend. You make yourself accessible as a person and as a host. And that is how you set yourself apart from those big conference organizers who have millions of dollars to spend on their virtual events. If you position yourself, I like to think of like indie virtual summits with very bootstrapped budgets of like maybe $5,000, maybe $10,000. There's your differentiating factor.
Right. And I suppose a lot of people watching this will be thinking, well, we've heard of webinars and you can probably have a group webinar session on Zoom or something. where's the additional benefit of doing a virtual summit, I suppose?
It's essentially, I like to explain it as a podcast on steroids. So the most common format I see for virtual summits is you pre-record the interviews, at least partially, and say you have, for a 5-day summit, I would suggest you have 4 to 6 episodes a day. So that's maybe 25 episodes over the course of
Oh,
the
wow.
5 days. You pre-record those and then you set a timer for when they expire so that day 1 is available only for the first 24 hours, day 2 for the second 24 hours. And the reason I say that is you need to make your attendees take action. I've tried having a virtual conference with 27 sessions that I pre-recorded, and then over the course of the week, I kept all 27 sessions open, because I thought with Corona and everything that's going on, people need that flexibility to enjoy the content at their own leisure and when they have time, not when I think they should have time. And what ended up is that nobody, or almost nobody, watched those sessions because there was no urgency behind it. I thought that let's give them freedom to do whatever they want. And they did whatever they wanted, but that wasn't to see those sessions.
Yeah.
So as soon as you put the urgency behind it and say that the sessions expire after 24 or 48 hours, you force people in warm and welcoming ways, of course, but you make them take action to see those sessions. And if you then combine that with a live chat, with live networking, maybe after our party on Zoom or something like that, maybe a live networking area on Jitsi, there are so many ways that you can bring people together live virtually. Then you are setting yourself apart from just a one-off webinar.
Right. And you just mentioned, obviously, pre-recording 25 or so sessions. A lot of people watching this might think, wow, that is a lot of work. How long does it normally take to plan and execute a virtual summit?
It is not a small feat, yeah. We have a 90-day action plan inside Virtual Summit Mastery. So that is assuming that you can spend at least 3 to 4 hours every day on your events. So if it's your first event, I will probably say it's more realistically 120 to 150 days for a summit. If you are seasoned, if you have all the processes in place, you can run it in 2 months. The thing is, you need to orchestrate the speakers, you need to orchestrate affiliates, you need to orchestrate promotional partners who get the word out about the event, you need to orchestrate sponsors if you want to have companies sponsoring the event. So those parties are outside of your control and they need their own time. So for sponsors, you need at least 2 months because they need to approve the budget, they need to approve the sponsorship, they need to come up with the materials, they need to come up with a schedule for how to promote the event. That alone takes at least 1.5 months.
Right. And in terms of, from my perspective, as the entrepreneur who's putting all of this together, how do I make my money? Do I make my money because I'm building authority and people will come to me for business? Or do I make my money selling tickets, sponsorship? What's the revenue model here?
That's a fantastic question. I like sponsorships because you get the money before the event and that helps you cover the costs. So obviously you will need like a video editor, you will need some PPC guys, you will need copywriters, maybe a website developer, moderators for the webinars and for chat. So you have costs before the event comes up. That is what I use sponsors for mostly. Then you have the ticket sales, and then afterwards, after somebody bought the ticket, you could put them into a funnel to your core offering. So that can be a product, can be a service. And then after that summit is over, as you said, you have the authority now in that space. Even if you were starting from scratch, you now hosted a conference, you are the expert in the field by then, if the conference was successful. So you can continue promoting your own offering and marketing to the email list that you've built with the event. And what you can also do is you can either relaunch the same summit in the next quarter, with obviously with less results because people have seen the content before, but you will still make a little bit of money from that. Or you can put it onto an evergreen format, similar to evergreen webinars, where people can sign up whenever they want. You can do that with summits too. It's a lot of work, but it still works. And it is a good way to bring in 4 figures a month at least.
Right. And I suppose when I'm going out there and I'm finding speakers, I would hopefully get them for free by promising them some publicity rather than paying $500 or $1,000 to each of my speakers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Most speakers will do it for free as well. And the reason for that is, as you said, they get publicity, but you can also set up deals for them where they can include links to their own products or to their own newsletter. They can give away a lead magnet and build their list through your summit as well. One thing that I would say is you need to make sure that the sessions that you're recording are no like pitch fests. You don't want your speakers to overly promote themselves, but deliver value. And if they say you have a 60-minute session format, if they do 50 minutes content and then do 10-minute talking about how people can follow them and how they can download this lead magnet that dives deeper into the topic they just spoke about, I have no issues with that whatsoever. I think that that's a reasonable format.
Sure.
So I very rarely pay speakers for my summits as well. And they can obviously become affiliates and promote the summits. And I've had speakers do very well with that.
Right. And from your experience, is it better to let people come into the summit for free, or do you find it's better to charge them some sort of nominal amount up front?
Depends on what you want to do with the summit. I would usually say it's better to let them in for free, because that way you're building the bigger email list. If you have a price for the summit, you can do that too. For example, if you were to host a very high-level B2B conference with only C-level executives attending, and you aim to have like 100 or 200 attendees rather than 5,000 maybe on a free event, then you can charge $200 to $1,000 for the ticket, because you bring those C-level people together and they know that it's worth paying the entrance fee, because they essentially get a 1 day or 1 week mastermind group.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And I suppose in terms of your promotional tactics, you touched upon PPC, but what does a marketing plan look like for a virtual summit? How much in advance, do you start promoting it before you've built it? Or, because some people, like, for example, course creators often would create a course, or they'd sell the course before they create it to validate the idea. I mean, how does the process work for you when you are kind of want to make sure that you're going to get a successful summit?
Yeah, that's another very good question. And at first, before you execute on anything, you need to set the topic and you need to validate the topic for your summit. And there are processes to do that. It's essentially niche research and product research. You look at what market do you want to position yourself in with the summit? Are there any other products that are selling already? Is that a valid market to enter? Then you would do some research and talk to people on what do you think about the idea of hosting a virtual conference? What would it take for a conference so that you would attend it, and so on. And by that point, you can already start spreading the word slowly. You could build a wait list page and start collecting email addresses by that point. The real promotion, I would say, starts maximum 4 to 5 weeks before the event. And by then you can have a pre-sale discount on your all access pass where people buy the ticket, the lifetime access to the sessions after the summit is over. You can sell that at a discounted rate during pre-launch. You get into email marketing to your own list. You get into blogging. You try to get interviewed on podcasts. You try to do guest blogs. You very, very heavily need to involve the speakers in the promotion. So usually as a speaker, I want as many eyes as possible on my sessions so that obviously my authority shines through. And you give them swipe copy to do that. You give them like an email marketing campaign that goes over 3 to 4 weeks and tell them exactly this day you send this email, this day you send that email. It's like a regular affiliate marketing campaign for email, for social media. You can invite them onto your own media if you want. If you have a blog, or if you have a podcast, interview the speakers before that already. Give a little glance into what they're talking about in their session. What I'm doing is I have a video editor who's pulling out snippets from my interviews. So what I've done is I've learned this from Tristan from It's Nomad 9. During my interviews, I do have this mug of coffee or 1 mug of coffee, and I do have a glass of water.
Right.
And to stay hydrated, I drink water. If I thought that the speaker shared a good thing, I drink coffee. And by that, my video editor scrolls through the video and knows exactly, oh, Jan just drank coffee. Let me go back 2-3 minutes, pull that out into a little video that he can then post on social media or something like that.
That's a great cue. I think I need to start using that. I mean,
all credit
I never
to Tristan
usually have a
Griffith.
cup, but I've got one here because I needed a tea before I came on.
Very nice. Yeah, and I also had interviews at like 2 a.m. in the morning, or at 11 at night, and I wouldn't drink coffee at 11 at night, of course. So I would have water in my mug, but nobody cares. Nobody knows.
Yeah, no, of course, that totally makes sense. Now, you mentioned that there's like a 90-day action plan that you work with people on. What do the 90 days look like? What do you achieve at the end of day 30, day 60, day 90?
Yeah, good question. So we have post-summit and summit, pre-summit and summit delivery are the first 6 phases of a 7-step plan. So you validate the topic. What then happens is you start reaching out to influencers in the field. So you want to have a mix of influencers. I can dive into that in a little bit. You build a summit platform, you start the pre-launch, set up all the funnels, and you deliver the summit. And then afterwards is you have an encore where you open up the entire summit again to make some more noise in the space. And with the topic validation, we spoke about that briefly already. With the influencer strategy and picking the right speakers you want to have for the event, you need to have a mix of speakers. So it doesn't make sense to just have A-list speakers on your event, because those people won't promote as much.
Yeah.
If I get Gary Vaynerchuk on the summit, for example, he will maybe talk about it in one of his vlogs once or twice and tweet about it, and that's it. Whereas if I have Gary V and then I have smaller, lesser known speakers on the summit, they will promote everything about the summit, because they can say that, hey, I'm sharing the stage with Gary V. So that is why you need to have like 2 or 3 very, very high level speakers, and then you tier down to the lesser known speakers and get a good mix from those, so that you are very aware of who will promote, who will likely not promote as much. Sign up to all their email lists so that you know when they promote, and then you can thank them for sending out an email, for example. Follow them on social media to do the same. And you can pre-record them. You can do the sessions live. I would suggest pre-recording, because orchestrating a live summit really is a lot of work.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to do that myself.
Of course.
And then in the process, when you are interviewing the speakers, when you're building the relationships in the field, you can already start working on the website. And what I do is I built the landing page talking about the event, and in the speaker section, I would add the speakers as I get them onto the summit, as they agree to my summit. So I would say more speakers announced soon, as long as the lineup isn't ready. And then you can essentially, while you're doing all the speaker interactions, you can build the websites, build the funnels.
Right. Okay. So you do all of this simultaneously. So you're not waiting till the last minute to start your promotions. Now, you've spoken about having some kind of A players as your headline speakers. Now, those people, I'm guessing if I wanted to get Gary V or Grant Cardone onto a platform, I would probably need to put up some money rather than they would just come on to work with me for free. Now, how difficult is it to actually find decent speakers? Is it something that you spend weeks on? Do you need to speak to 1,000 people to find 25 people who say yes? How laborious is that process?
It is quite a bit of work. I would say that if you want to have 25 speakers on your summit, you need to speak to 70 or 80 people, so roughly 3x. The thing is, depending on your industry, there are people who are already doing interviews regularly. So I would reach out to those people who I know, and then to those people who I don't know, but who do regular interviews at first. Because once you have the critical mass, once you have like 3 to 5 speakers who are confirmed, and you can say to the new speakers you're reaching out to, hey, I have ABCD confirmed on the summit already. Do you want to join the stage? That's when things get a bit easier. But the main work is not so much in getting the speakers, but in orchestrating them. So each speaker has questions on what format will it be, what tool do we use, when do we do the recording, what do you need from me, what do I want to know from you? And there's a ton of emails that will be going back and forth. So that is the most workload. It's not so much getting the speakers to say yes to come to the summit.
Right. Now, obviously, in this age of automation and delegation, can I just find someone to do all of this for me? I mean, do you cover any of that in your program where I'll set the agenda and the strategy and I'll find someone, I don't know, in the Philippines or Pakistan to go and figure all the rest of the pieces out?
Yeah, I have actually a VA. My full-time VA did that for my last summit. I gave her the, I would say, requirements that a speaker needs to fulfill. So what topic of expertise do they have? How much following do they need to be interesting to join the summit? And then I had her build up an Airtable or Google Sheet, whatever you want to use. And we used that as the foundation to track everything. And she knew exactly what I needed from the speaker. So I needed the date, I needed a headshot graphic for the website, I needed a short biography, I needed a title for the session. And you can automate all of that, or you can streamline it at least. You can set up like Google Forms or something like that, that collects all the data you want, and then you can have a VA communicate with the speakers. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that's good to know for the people who are busy, I suppose, in kind of life gets in the way, I suppose.
Otherwise, it's a full-time job. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. And if we're looking to open an additional income stream, we can't really lose focus of our core business, I suppose.
True.
Now, from your perspective, what is the most critical component of making sure that your summit is going to be successful?
Besides knowing that people are interested in your topic and doing your research up front, I would say it's most critical that you give the attendees this feeling of being involved in your event. So keep them updated constantly about, hey, I've just interviewed speaker A and he shared ABCD, so make sure to mark your spot in calendar when his session goes live. Or you bring them together on the event with a live hangout for a kickoff party, for example. When you celebrate it, I usually do a live webinar the day before the summit and just invite a few friends to have a chat, to have a conversation with a live stream in the group that I'm building around the summit, to warm people up, to get people excited and to tell them what they can expect. And when you have an audience that feels like they are connected in this group, that they have a safe community that you are building, and they open up to sharing what they want from the summit, and they open up to sharing what they are struggling with and what questions they have, that is where the real magic lies, I think, because that is when you can truly help people and when you can make them feel heard and when you can make them feel special, and that's what they remember.
Right. And final question for you really is, obviously we've spoken about this requiring maybe a bit of investment up front, maybe $5,000. How much money can I make if I'm going to put $5,000 down?
The best question towards the end. I've had people in VSM, for example, I'm thinking of 𝗬𝗪𝗏 right now from Self-Publishing School, who did a summit a while ago. He made well into six figures with his core offering at the back end. So he obviously had a high ticket offer at the back end and he had a team executing the summit. But I have seen, for example, the harp summit from one of my students who did close to six figures for people playing the harp, which is something that I would have never expected. So there is serious money that you can make with these events. And I don't think that all the players coming into the space are diminishing the returns of summits now, because as long as you can differentiate yourself and as you can build an active community around your event, it's no competition to what the big players are doing.
Right. Okay. So this can actually be a full-time venture rather than side money, I suppose. That's awesome.
100%.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely awesome. So I suppose for someone who wants to find out more about running a virtual summit, wants to find out more about you, where can they find you? Where can they find, your website, your courses or whatever?
The best place is virtualsummitmastery.com. At the time of this recording, it still shows Naveed on the front end, but don't let that distract you. If you want to get in touch with me personally, the best place is Twitter at I am Jan Koch.
Awesome. On that note, Jan Koch, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.